Are you struggling with social skills, emotional intelligence, communication, strategic thinking, or successful habits, all the while pursuing your dream of quitting your day job to run a successful online business? Welcome to the Life Sculptor Blueprint, a show tailored for determined and resourceful individuals who aspire to enhance their life skills, fire their bosses, and reach their online business goals. This show delivers practical advice and inspirational stories, arming you with necessary tools to sharpen your life skills and excel at running a thriving and online business empire. I'm your host, Jack Wolf. Here's the question of the day. Have you ever found yourself plagued by a persistent, nagging voice that tells you you are not good enough, smart enough, or capable enough? Do you know what that voice is called? We're going to refer to that voice as the inner critic. You may also hear this discussed as imposter syndrome. But today we're just going to refer to it as the inner critic. It can be incredibly damaging to our self-esteem and our overall mental health. The good news is that you can learn to silence the inner critic and replace it with positive affirmations that build a stronger, more confident self-image. Today, we're going to talk about strategies to help us overcome the inner critic and find the courage to love ourselves and reach greater levels of achievement. I'll be drawing from principles in my book, How to Talk to Anyone, Social Skills Made Easy. But first, let's talk about what is the inner critic specifically. So the inner critic is a common phenomenon that many people experience. It's an internal voice that constantly judges, criticizes, and belittles us. The voice can stem from various sources, from people in our past, maybe negative past experiences. It could be the overall environment of our home during our upbringing. It could be societal pressures around us. According to Dr. Lisa Firestone, a clinical psychologist, the inner critic is formed early in life and represents internalized negative messages that we received from parents and peers in society. This voice can also manifest itself as what we call the third eye, which is how you see yourself when you look at yourself from an objective standpoint. You may not hear voices, but you may still sense that overall feeling of disgust toward yourself, or maybe that you aren't worthy. And so the negativity just perpetuates and it holds you back from pursuing what you want in life. You may find that you have a lack of desire to try new things. You may feel anxiety, unworthiness, as we said, discouragement. You may feel that if you were able to accomplish the things that you dream of accomplishing, that in the end, you wouldn't be worthy of having what you were able to accomplish. And so you would talk yourself out of keeping or continuing that behavior. The key here is we have to try to pinpoint the specific thoughts that are contributing to these feelings. It can help to keep a journal. That way you can keep track of those thoughts. But the key here is identifying them. You don't necessarily have to solve anything in the moment, but actually calling them out and understanding what are those thoughts. This begins to create a dividing line between what really is you and your thoughts and what is the actual critic that is yelling at you that you aren't good enough and that you can't do it, that you're unworthy and unable, right? Because there really is a difference between the two. So training yourself to recognize what is of you and what is not of you is the first key. If you suffer from an exceptionally loud inner critic, don't be discouraged. You can gain victory and relief as you make an effort to address these thoughts consistently. Think of it like you're pulling weeds in a garden. If you just look at the garden, the sheer size of it, you could become discouraged very quickly. But if you just focus on pulling one weed at a time rather than paying attention to the entire garden, then you can actually move forward and make progress in certain patches. And that's really what this is about, is making progress, right? We have a phrase around here, better is better. And as long as you can move your situation forward so that you are better today than you were yesterday, then you are making progress. Once you've identified the voice of your inner critic and you know how to tell the difference between what is of you, what is truth, and what is of this negative voice, then the next step is to challenge these negative thoughts. Cognitive behavioral therapy provides techniques that can be particularly effective in this process. According to the American Psychological Association, cognitive behavioral therapy helps individuals identify and challenge negative thought patterns and replace them with more realistic positive ones. So here's how it works. In order to challenge a negative thought, you have to ask yourself the following questions. Is this thought based on fact or assumption? What evidence do I have to support this thought? That's key. Is there an alternative, more positive perspective I can consider? How would I respond if a friend had this thought about themselves? You don't have to stick to these questions exactly, but you do need to consider questions that will help you question the validity of your negative thought. Question your thoughts' right to exist. And then you can begin to see them for what they really are. They're distorted and they're unhelpful and they don't reflect reality. So my favorite is, what evidence do I have to support this thought? I really find that kind of a question helps ferret out what is true and what is just a negative overarching thought that has no real teeth to it. So, sometimes as I'm beginning to write and I begin to question, do I have what it takes to write about this topic? Do I really believe in myself? Am I worthy of completing this book? Am I worthy of offering it to the world, right? Well, I have to ask myself, what evidence do I have that supports the accusations of the inner critic? And I begin to notice that there really isn't any evidence, or the evidence is very thin, and I'm cobbling together a bunch of negative thoughts and mood swingy kinds of feelings, as if I were building some ugly Lego creation, right? And so I cannot find any real support for that argument that is plaguing me. And that's when I begin to turn the page on the narrative and begin to say, well, you know what? If that's not true, then what is true? And let's consider this from a more positive angle. And that's where I begin to replace, the accusation with something else. And it's extremely important that you have evidence to support your positive claim, because if not, you'll feel an inner conflict inside, as you try to, boost your mood with these positive affirmations. If there's no real evidence to support what you're saying, then you're really just making statements and hoping to step into larger shoes and walk those things out in the future. So find some evidence. How do I know that I am able and worthy to offer a new book to the world, right? That's the question I might ask myself. And I would say, well, I've done this before. I have reviews from readers who have stated that my work was helpful, that they were excited to implement these things. I now have evidence in favor of my capability, whereas the inner critic had no real evidence to support its claim other than just negative feelings, memories of the past, maybe voices of family members and friends of my past who were hurtful or who were jealous or who were not supportive, right? So all of those things really have no standing in my life at this point. And so therefore I'm able to see them for what they are and let those things go. We talked about the importance of replacing the negative thought with a positive affirmation. It's just important to know that the goal of why you are offering yourself a positive affirmation and not simply just questioning the negative affirmation is you're trying to replace those feelings of negativity with overall general promotion of self-acceptance, self-love, and confidence. Confidence is the goal here. Once you believe in you, then you're able to climb heights that you've never climbed before. And this is key. Positive affirmations help rewire your brain. They help empower you. There was a pioneer in the field of self-compassion named Dr. Kristen Neff. And Kristen says that positive affirmations can counteract the negative impact of the inner critic and promote a healthier self-image. So here's how we use positive affirmations to flip the script on your negative inner critic. First, identify your negative thought. Look at the negative thought that you've identified and consider how you can turn it into a positive statement. Craft the affirmation in the present tense, not the future tense. Many people like to try to state it as a future goal. For example, I will be more confident, but really you have to state it as a present tense truth. I am confident. I am confident. Well, why am I confident? Do I have evidence to support this? And just add any evidence you can find. Anything is better than nothing. Be specific and personal. Tailor your affirmation to address your specific need and challenge. For example, if you're struggling with self-worth, you might say, I am worthy of love and respect, not just, I'm not struggling with self-worth any longer, right? There's a more positive and specific instance here. I'm worthy of love and respect. And you can tailor that as much as you need. You can feel free to explore it, to define it to the nitty gritty. However much time you're willing to invest, you will see the dividends. And then the final fourth step here is to repeat these affirmations regularly. You may even want to write these things down, put them on a sticky note, attach it to your refrigerator or your bathroom mirror if you need to, places where you visit often. Consistency is the key. You want to repeat these affirmations daily and preferably in front of a mirror to reinforce the impact as you look at yourself and tell yourself, I am worthy of love and respect. I am able. I am confident. You get the picture. Some examples of positive affirmations include, I'm capable and strong. I deserve happiness and success. I'm proud of who I am and who I am becoming. And I trust myself. I trust my decisions. So I asked the listeners this question. Have you ever found yourself plagued by a persistent nagging voice that tells you you're not good enough, smart enough, or capable enough? I asked that you use some of the concepts that I have taught in my book to tell your story and describe the progress you've been making. And I'd like to play for you an audio clip of how Jamie used the information in her favor. Let's give it a listen.
There was a time in my life when that nagging voice was a constant companion. It would tell me I wasn't good enough, smart enough, or capable enough to achieve my goals. This inner critic became particularly loud during my transition from a corporate job to pursuing my dream to be an author. One vivid memory stands out. I had just left my job to write, and I was filled with excitement and optimism. But as the initial thrill faded, doubt started to creep in. I remember sitting at my desk late at night, designing my web page, staring at my screen, and that voice began its relentless assault. Who do you think you are to start a business? You're going to fail. You're not smart enough to pull this off. At first, I tried to ignore it, hoping it would go away on its own. But it didn't. In fact, the more I ignored it, the louder it seemed to become. I realized I needed to confront this inner critic head-on if I wanted to move forward. I started paying close attention to my thoughts and feelings, especially during moments when I felt discouraged, anxious, or unworthy. I kept a journal and would jot down these negative thoughts as they appeared. This practice helped me identify patterns and specific triggers. For instance, I noticed that I often felt unworthy after a setback or when comparing myself to more successful peers. By pinpointing these thoughts, I began to understand their source. Many of them stemmed from past experiences and fears of failure. For example, I had a particularly harsh mother who would belittle me for making mistakes. Those early experiences with her had planted the seeds of self-doubt. I really love my mother, and I realized that she was plagued with uncertainty at that time of her life. Once I identified the voice of my inner critic and its origins, I started challenging those negative thoughts. Whenever the voice told me I wasn't good enough, I countered by asking for evidence of the accusation. I began to write out a list of my capabilities and past successes. I reminded myself of projects I had successfully completed, the skills I had honed, and the positive feedback I had received from colleagues and mentors over the years. I felt like I had evidence in favor of me, and the inner critic really didn't have evidence to support its claim. Learning to let go of the inner critic wasn't an overnight transformation, but gradually, the voice lost its power. I learned to treat myself with the same kindness and encouragement I would offer a friend. This shift in mindset was liberating and allowed me to pursue my goals with greater confidence and resilience. Today, I still hear that voice from time to time, but now I know how to handle it. I've learned that it's okay to have moments of doubt, but they don't define me or my abilities. By staying mindful of my thoughts and consistently challenging my inner critic, I've been able to turn those negative whispers into a source of motivation rather than a roadblock.
That is absolutely incredible to see the progress that Jamie has made. So congratulations are in order for you, Jamie. Awesome job. Let's finish out our segment here by talking about how to build a stronger, more confident self-image. First of all, we have to know that building a positive self-image takes time and practice. It involves not only silencing the inner critic, but it also involves actively nurturing our self-esteem and our confidence. So here are some strategies to help build a stronger, confident self-image. Number one, practice self-compassion. Be kind to yourself, especially during times of struggle and failure. Self-compassion involves treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer a friend. Oftentimes, we're so much harder on ourselves than we are on our friends. We have to acknowledge our imperfections without judgment and recognize that everyone makes mistakes. Next, celebrate your achievements. Take time to acknowledge and celebrate your accomplishments, no matter how small they may seem. Keep a success journal or a record of some kind of your daily achievements to help you reinforce a positive self-image and remind yourself of the progress you're making. Remember, this is evidence that you use to support your positive affirmations. So this is key for success. Number three, surround yourself with positive influences. Spend time with people who uplift and support you. Cut back on spending time with people who are overly critical or negative in general. They can reinforce the language of your inner critic, even if they aren't necessarily aiming their negativity at you. Number four, set realistic goals, and we've talked about this before. Of course, everyone moves with the assumption that their goals are realistic. So they don't know what they don't know. And when I say, hey, set a realistic goal, they nod their head yes. And everyone assumes, of course, that is what we want. That is what we're doing. Just remember that when you set your goals can boost your confidence and provide a sense of accomplishment. So you need to break down the larger goals into smaller, more manageable steps and break down those smaller steps into even smaller steps, celebrating each victory milestone that you accomplish. You can't celebrate too much. All right. And I'm not talking about, give yourself 2 hours to celebrate, but it's okay to stop and acknowledge when you have accomplished something small and how it is building towards something much greater. It's all about enjoying the journey toward the accomplishment and not simply celebrating when you've reached the overall overarching goal. And then, of course, our fifth step, engage in activities that you enjoy. Sounds funny that I would even have to say this, but participating in activities that bring you joy and fulfillment enhance your self-esteem. So whether it's a hobby or a sport or you're just pursuing your dream, do the things that you love in order to feel more capable and more confident, especially in those areas. If all we do is focus in on the negative, most challenging aspects of our business, and we don't actually gravitate toward those things where we are confident and capable, then in our subconscious, we'll begin to hate our dream and talk ourselves out of it. And I don't want to see you leave behind a dream because the stress of not living in what you love talks you out of and becomes the inner critic toward the business that you're building, right? And yes, there are aspects to building our business that are not necessarily our favorite. They may be things we don't love, but we do those things in order to get to the things that we do love. So I'm telling you, just make sure you engage in the activities that you love as a general rule in your business, and try to spend less time doing the things that you don't. May even hire those out if you can, in order to be focused on where you really are confident and capable. Now, these strategies that we've talked about throughout this episode are not just theoretical. They have real life application. As you heard with Jamie's success story, I'll also tell you, I am by nature an extremely shy introvert. I've indicated this before. I was bullied constantly by an older sibling, and all throughout my childhood, bullies in school. And this left me with a loud inner critic and a really low self-esteem. It was difficult to find the courage to grow in any way personally, because growing personally was like battling a multi-headed dragon. So in order to take on a challenge, I had to first work through that inner critic telling me I would never accomplish the thing I desired. Then number two, another head on that monster was telling me that I didn't deserve to have the thing I was reaching for. And then another head on the dragon, of course, was the actual skill that I needed to learn and implement. And with that came the other head on the dragon, which was convincing me that other people were being critical of me, even though they weren't. I was just regurgitating my feelings and projecting it on other people. And so with time, I learned how to apply the principles we've discussed, and I learned to understand the voice that was the inner critic versus the voice of truth in my life. And as I began to question the right to exist, then I began to starve that inner critic and deny him a voice in my mind or in my heart. And now with time and practice, I'm much more free, and I'm reaching daily for growth and success. I'm even able to say to myself at times when I hear that inner critic say something, what you have to say, Jack, is not that important. Then I'm able to come back and say, you know what? Yes, it is. And I'm awesome at delivering these concepts to people. I'm not perfect. I'm not well established, but yet there are people who have told me that I have helped them. And so that keeps me going. I am awesome at what I do. I may not be world renowned, and that's okay, right? I don't have to be world renowned to have evidence to support that what I'm doing is making a difference. And so the multi-headed dragon is quite lethargic these days in my life. He's no longer a daunting beast. He's more of an aggravation that I need to sweep aside in order to keep moving. And you can learn this skill as well. Incorporating these strategies into your daily routine, it's essential for making lasting change. Start by identifying a few key affirmations and practicing them daily. Set small, achievable goals, celebrate your successes. And over time, these practices will become habits that support a more positive self-image. If you want to learn more about this area of discussion or any other area of discussion around the inner critic and building your self-confidence, then I would love to invite you to check out my book, How to Talk to Anyone, Social Skills Made Easy, written by me, Jack Wolf. It offers a comprehensive roadmap to mastering social skills and overcoming the inner critic for good. I can't overemphasize, you want to minimize and starve that voice in your life in order to find the freedom to push yourself into new levels of achievement. You're not alone in this journey. Many have walked this path and emerged more confident and self-assured. So feel free to connect with me on my webpage. That's posg.life. posg.life. We're all in this together. Let's support each other in becoming the best versions of ourselves, one positive affirmation at a time, and go out there and build that business. The world needs you. All right. Well, thanks for listening. Short episode today. Tons of fun. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Please comment back to me so I can continue to produce content that is valuable and specific to your needs. Thanks, everybody.